Welcome. The value of telling stories. Stories about the original settlers that came to Canada in the late 1890s, early 1900s. Stories about the hardships, the challenges, stories about their determination, their perseverance, their resilience in dealing with so many things that were different than the homeland in Ukraine, especially being away from relatives, isolated, different language, harsher weather, and of course, dealing with raising a new family in a new country, and not only looking after the immediate needs, making sure that they had food for the winter, but also to make sure that they cleared enough land and built buildings to meet the obligations they had under the ordinance that was issued by the government of today in order to get their homestead. So a story called Dora and the Bear. Theodora, I need your help with the stooking today. I feel the weather could turn any day now, and I don't want to lose the crop. Of course, but let me feed little Michael first. Planting a tender kiss on Dora's cheeks, McCullough bows his head as he ducks under the short doorway of their humble home. Peering up at the sun, he places his hat upon his head, takes up his scythe and shotgun, and starts his hike to the field. Dora, holding their firstborn son, plops down on the wood pallet bed, places Michael on her lap, and feeds her happy but sleepy child. In her moment of peace, she has a chance to survey her house. On better days, she understands that the sod hut is only the beginning, the first step in this new life of theirs. This sod hut, this burdai, is nothing like the house they left back in Ukraine. That house was strong, constructed out of wood, plaster, and straw. And the roof was made of lovely, thick, golden thatch. There were fruit trees in their yard, and even a glistening brook running nearby. It was heartbreaking to leave home, but McCullough was right. There were all sorts of problems in Europe now: land shortages, no work, and politics had a volatile flair to them. There wasn't much of a future for their children. The world back home wasn't what it used to be. Canada was a second chance. On better days, when Dora looks over the beloved items that she brought from Ukraine, it makes her feel like she's not so far from her loved ones. But today isn't a better day. The weather has turned crisp and stings the skin in the freshness of the morning. She could find beauty in the changing seasons. Canada certainly had magnificent landscapes and changing colors. But she isn't able to dwell on the benefits today. It's a race to get the fields cleared before the snow comes, or else they could end up starving during the winter. If there's the risk of starvation, then there's a bigger risk that McCullough will leave her and the babe alone in the burdai as he goes down south to earn money working on the back-breaking railroads or in the dangerous coal mines. And Dora doesn't want to be left alone. She doesn't know the language, the people, or even how to shoot a shotgun. She doesn't want to go through any of this without her brave and reliable McCullough, and she certainly doesn't want him to get sick or hurt during that dangerous work down south. Peering down at her precious child. Dora fears for what could be. Was this really the best choice? To take you away from everything familiar? Sweeping her gaze around the room to find the wooden cross and trunk her family passed along with her, as well as the bedding her mother lovingly embroidered for her and McCullough's wedding. Dora's heart clenches and wrings out like a rag, noticing the trickles of dust falling from the stud between the cracks of the log ceiling into her treasured feather quilt. The black earthen walls of the burdai seem to squeeze in on her, threatening suffocation. The dirt and sod house built into the earth was intended to be a temporary dwelling. But with so much work to be done in the field and in the yard, she wonders how long temporary will be. Oh, Mother, I'm so glad that you're not here to see me like this. Dora notices that the child has stopped feeding and is snuggled in for a nap. Not having the heart to wake him and drag him into the field with the grain dust, heat of the day, and the wretched mosquitoes, she places him gently onto her bed and hums a quiet lullaby. Sleep, child. I'll check on you soon. Walking the distance to the field to help her husband, Dora fastens her colorful scarf around her head. Where's Michael? Nick asks. Sleeping like an angel. I've got some time to help you before I go and check on him. When I do, I'll bring back some lunch. Nodding in agreement, McCullough gets back to cutting the grain while Dora gathers it into stooks. It's back-breaking work, but it has to be done. Dora's left the child in the house alone a few times. It's never bothered her before. But today, there is something nagging at her. It must have been nagging at McCullough too, because when he stops to refresh himself with a ladle of cool water, he says, maybe you should go back and check on the boy. Wiping her brow and taking a drink of water that her husband offers her, she agrees. I'll be back soon, and with some lunch. Walking the path through the woods back to her burdai, she notes that she doesn't hear Michael crying yet. And for this, she's thankful. But then, the hairs on the back of her neck prick up. She hears clanking, and the only place where things can do that is in the house. Heart fluttering, Dora wipes away a bead of sweat that appears above her brow. Michael, she whispers to herself in fear. As she emerges from the woods, she sees a black bear exit the burdai and wallow back into the forest in the opposite direction. Struck with horror, Dora thwarts the scream that is lodged within her throat, threatening to escape. She hasn't heard any crying, and she doesn't know whether to be thankful or worried. Realizing that McCullough has the shotgun with him in the field, Dora skulks back to the house so the bear doesn't detect her and return. But unable to hold back her concern, at the last moment, she makes a mad dash through the door. Bursting through the threshold of the burdai, Dora doesn't bother letting her eyes adjust from the bright to the immediate dark. Tripping over scattered objects that the bear knocked over, she lands on the floor on the heap of flour and sugar. Raising herself onto her knees and wiping the flour from her eyes, Dora finally has a moment to look around. The curious bear snooped into almost everything. Foodstuffs are strewn about, along with pots and pans. Household items are tossed onto the ground. Crawling over to the alarmingly silent bed, Dora, afraid to look in, stifles her tears and sends a desperate prayer to God. Please, my Lord, please let Michael be safe. Taking in a deep, shaky breath, she noticed specks of flour flowing through a sunbeam that flaunts itself through a crack in the logs, causing life to slow right down. Mustering the courage to peek over the foot of the bed, she looks up upon her precious son. He's sleeping peacefully, completely undisturbed. What a miracle from above! Making the sign of the cross and sending up to God a prayer of thanks. Dora catches the smile that appears on Michael's face, as if he could sense his mother nearby. Collapsing in relief beside the bed, Dora finally allows her tears to spill. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was particularly difficult for me to read because as I was reading it, I was thinking about my dad, who was Michael in the bed that Baba placed him. So I, along with my family, were very fortunate that he wasn't hurt. But that just gives an indication of the many hardships that our pioneers faced. And we have to continue to tell these stories from generation to generation, because life was difficult in the beginning. We enjoy such a great life in the country of Canada and in the province of Alberta. And it's only because of the resilience and the perseverance of our first pioneers that made it possible for us. So let's appreciate what they did for us in the beginning, and we keep appreciating and thanking them forever into the future. Thank you for listening.